Hello, and thank you for joining us for this special edition of KXAN Live. I'm Josh Hinkle, and today we're breaking down our latest investigation, Justice for Some. When Texas lawmakers changed the way to hold state officials accountable for corruption in 2015, they said their goal was to take the politics out of the system, but critics say it's done just the opposite. A new analysis by the Texas Observer shows between 2015 and 2020, nearly 90% of corruption cases in this new system statewide have not resulted in prosecutions, and those that have are usually lower level officials who get light sentences. KXAN collaborated with the Texas Observer for this project, along with our other partners, including the Fort Worth Report and KTEP Public Radio out of El Paso. All right, joining me now is Lisa Olsen from the Texas Observer, Jessica Priest from the Fort Worth Report, and my KXAN investigative colleague, David Barrera. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, thank you.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. Lisa, let's start with you because you really launched this project. What interested you in this? How did it all get started?
Well, I knew that 5-6 years ago, the legislature had defunded the Public Integrity Unit in Austin. And I had been watching ever since then to kind of see how it was working. And it just seemed like there was no news. We had an indictment early on of our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, but then he still has not been convicted of anything. And we really had no other high-level public official indicted under this new system where the Rangers were going to investigate public integrity investigations. So I filed a records request and said, hey, what's going on? How many of these reports, how many of these investigations have you done? How many have resulted in prosecutions? And from there, I was kind of off to the races because filling in the blanks was what this investigation was about. There were 560 cases that had been investigated, but a lot more complaints had come in and had never been investigated. There was this kind of secret veto process. And then the ones that had been investigated, the majority, nearly 90%, even though there was a pre-approval process for a lot of them, where they were reviewed by DAs before the investigations were conducted, very few resulted in any kind of real prosecution, any kind of punishment beyond a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, David, I want to turn to you. Once KXAN got involved, we started looking at the history of the Public Integrity Unit here in Travis County that had done many of these state official cases in the past and what led up to the change there. Give us some background on how this relates back to former Governor Rick Perry. I've seen people talking about that whole incident on social media today as we've been rolling out this project.
Yeah, it goes back to a specific incident when our former district attorney, Rosemary Lemberg, got arrested for drunk driving. And Rick Perry was the governor at that time, and he threatened to veto funding. Well, he called on her to resign, and he threatened to veto funding for the Public Integrity Unit if she didn't. And he went through with that. And later, he was indicted for tying the threat to defund the department with her resignation. And so that was a specific incident that went back to the defunding of the department. Later on in 2015, there was legislation that completely reformed how the Public Integrity Unit was funded and worked, but that was the incident with Rick Perry.
Lisa, now that the investigative part of the public integrity process has gone to the Texas Rangers, how do they really get these cases and how do they screen them for which ones actually move forward?
Well, anybody can, in theory, file a complaint about a public official, and I've talked to citizens and lawyers who've tried to do so, but in practice what happens is the cases that most often get investigated are the ones that are referred directly by a law enforcement official or a DA, and if they're not referred by a DA, a public integrity investigation under the law can actually go forward until the DA signs off on it. Now, there are some lesser public integrity, kind of public corruption cases that can happen without a DA's prior approval, but I ran into people who had tried to bring forward very complicated complaints about public officials they thought were stealing or public officials they thought were committing fraud, and they couldn't get anyone to investigate. The Rangers would not investigate because the Rangers didn't get approvals, and those were in emails. In the cases that were investigated, often you had a public official who belonged to the same party as the DA, went to the same, fundraising events as the DA, and maybe was the DA's friend. And so you just had to trust that the DA was going to do the right thing. And that didn't always happen. I mean, in the case I mentioned right away about Ken Paxton, who was indicted in Collin County, that came about because an attorney from a different county contacted the grand jury and said, the DA has never presented information from this public integrity investigation that the Rangers did about Ken Paxton and about how he didn't properly follow the law about state stock rules and disclosing his ownership interests. And then the indictment happened without a DA being involved at all. And what I found all across the state was that there were, rarely indictments, and a lot of these cases do involve public officials who were taking money, public officials who are committing fraud, public officials who are doing things that get called official oppression, which means misusing their office to commit a crime, essentially. And you also see cases where people are violating the civil rights of other people, using their authority as a public official to kind of get away with it. So you see public officials who, for example, one who beat up his wife, she was very seriously injured, could not report to work as a jail nurse. And, he's eventually prosecuted, but for a misdemeanor and not for a felony. Many other people in some of these cases would have been prosecuted for a felony, but because they were a public official, they were prosecuted under another statute. And that's another problem with our whole system, is a lot of the laws in Texas that apply to public officials, specifically crimes like official oppression, are misdemeanors often. And so even when there is a crime proven, a DA doesn't want to spend the time that it takes to get what is a misdemeanor conviction.
Now, with a lot of these cases, we were finding most of them were of lower level officials. Like you kind of mentioned some of these non-statewide cases. I know when David and I were looking here in Central Texas, we were looking at people like, a county commissioner or maybe a sheriff's office dispatcher, that kind of thing. Jessica, you have been looking into the same problems up in North Texas. Can you tell us about the angles you're exploring right now for your story that comes out later this week?
Yeah, so I just moved to Fort Worth, I guess not just moved to Fort Worth, but a few months ago. And one thing that our readers consistently told us that they wanted us to report on was the Tarrant Regional Water District. They're the local sponsor for a huge flood control / economic development project they're seeking federal funding for. And a lot of our readers want to know why it's taken so long to get the federal funding if it's truly a flood control project. So that's kind of been my main, one of my top marching orders since arriving in Fort Worth, is just trying to understand what's happening there. It's a huge water district with 300 or so employees that has a lot of control that I don't think people realize, a lot of power. So shortly after I got here, I got a tip that they had taken off the agenda recognizing an outgoing general manager, like the executive director of the organization. He'd been there for 30 years. So that kind of perked up my ears, and I started filing public records requests trying to figure out what was going on. Why would they not, pat him on the back as he's headed out the door? Well, it turns out that the board had found out that one of the board members on his own had directed staff to put in this retiring general manager's employee count hundreds of hours of paid vacation time that he hadn't earned. So that would have enabled him to cash out upon his retirement, an extra year's salary, $300,000. So Lisa, when she asked me to be a part of this investigation, was very fortuitous, because now a lot of readers, a lot of residents are requesting a forensic audit of the water district. And I was speaking with one reader in particular who told me she had gone to the DA's office with some information, and was turned away. So I think a lot of people don't really understand how to go about reporting what they think are wrongdoing. And I'm just happy to bring that to light to people.
And that's the kind of stories that you see in the Rangers reports of what was investigated. People, use their office to not pay their own taxes, for example, for years in some cases, use their office to pocket inspection money from businesses, misuse their position as a university official or as a court officials to pocket money that is supposed to be going into the public domain, but instead they just put it into their wallet. But if the Rangers don't investigate, if no public official gets involved to investigate, how do you prove that? It stays a mystery. Why is the budget short? Why is the audit off? Well, it requires somebody to go in and look at the bank accounts, somebody to question people. And so if it's never done, if we just have an audit and we have missing money, we won't find out who's stealing. And that person can keep on stealing, or that person can go to steal somewhere else. And what's kind of phenomenal in these records is you do see people who have been accused of, who've gotten away with stealing for years from cities or counties, probably because nobody did anything about it early on. Maybe people suspected, but they didn't know how to use the process. And there is a process and it should work, and we have people too who are arguing as part of the series that when someone who's really important, who's like a state legislator or a statewide office holder, is investigated, even if a crime isn't found, but say a pattern of unethical behavior is found, that those reports should be available to the public, because we hold our public officials to supposedly a higher standard. So a lot of times, even when the investigations are conducted and the Rangers don't find a crime that can be prosecuted, they do find unethical behavior. And then the way the system is now, the Rangers reports usually are not released. So we only have the reports in which there were cases where enough was stolen or enough wrongdoing was done that a DA decided to prosecute. Otherwise, the reports aren't available. And we know that there are 4 or 5 high-level public officials, and David's looked into this too, who have been investigated for what people are accusing them of, things that could be crimes. And yet we don't know what happened. For example, in the case where Sid Miller was accused of misusing state money to travel to compete in an out-of-state rodeo, and where he was accused of using state money to get a controversial health treatment called a Jesus shot. We don't know what happened to that investigation. It's not public. We don't know what happened to the investigation where Ken Paxton was investigated for taking $100,000 from a quote-unquote friend, who also happened to be a businessman whose company was simultaneously being investigated by the Attorney General's office for Medicare, Medicaid fraud. And there was a fine paid, and there was a settlement in that case later. Paxton argued there was no, and the donor argued there was no connection between the gift and that action. But that case was investigated. We are not allowed to know what the Rangers found or didn't find, because the DA in that case, a DA who was sitting on the case because the Collin County attorney did recuse himself, said that the evidence wasn't strong enough to present to a grand jury. So we don't know what they found out about that quote unquote gift, or what the Rangers discovered about the relationship between the two men. We don't get to know. So I think that's another problem. Not only are few of these cases involving those high profile legislators and lawmakers, but when they were investigated, most of the time we didn't get to find out what the Rangers discovered about allegations that were made public.
David, I know that you reached out to several of those high-profile officials that either had complaints against them or eventual investigations that, in a couple of cases led to prosecutions, specifically with Attorney General Ken Paxton, Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, former Speaker of the House Dennis Bonnen. I know none of them either. They all said, no, we're not talking, or we're not going to say anything on the record right now. Is there anything you can share about your conversations with them?
Yeah, not really. I wish I could, but they didn't. Nobody really wanted to talk to me. The people that did talk to me pretty much confined our conversations to off the record, so I wouldn't share anything about that. Paxton's office and Miller's office didn't respond to my request for comment, and so there's not a lot to say there. I don't think people that have been investigated by the Rangers typically like to relive it or talk about it. So I wish I had more to report on that.
One of the few state officials that was prosecuted in this new system, and I know you spoke to her off the record also, so she's not saying much, but was former state representative Donna Dukes from here in Austin. She ended up having to pay back some campaign funds and some fines in the case that was against her, but all of the charges were dropped in her case, correct?
Yeah, she was charged with more than a dozen felonies and a couple of misdemeanors. All of the felonies were dropped, and I think based on, if I remember correctly, just a botched prosecution. The evidence wasn't there for those, and then the misdemeanors were also dropped. The district attorney at the time, Margaret Moore, said she was dropping the misdemeanors, and there was going to be some repayment of fines. So Donna Dukes is not an elected official anymore. I hope I'm saying this correctly. I believe she ran again and didn't win her race for North Austin, Pflugerville area House District. So she's out of the mix now, and did not comment on the record for this report.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was she said she wasn't going to run, and then she ended up running, and then she got beat in the primary after that. So,
and that is, interestingly enough, that is the only investigation of a statewide lawmaker or legislator that has been released by the Rangers. So we do know what she was accused of. It started out when two of her employees argued that she had misused their time as state employees to ask them to do personal favors for her, to volunteer, to act as a nanny in one case. And that was part of the money she had to repay them, some of the money. But she argued at the time, and I think it was a really interesting argument in light of what we're talking about, how our state laws are pretty weak, that a lot of other lawmakers were doing similar things and the rules weren't very clear. And I think the DA at the time agreed with that the rules weren't very clear about how the legislators had to document their own time, and much less how they had to document how they were using their employees. So it seemed sort of more like you could do this if you wanted to, and nobody would probably ever call you on it. And that if she had been prosecuted, maybe there would have had to have been a lot of other people prosecuted for doing similar things. The same kind of thing was true about the $100,000 gift that Ken Paxton received from the man whose company was being investigated. Apparently, Texas gift laws are very broad, and those kinds of things are allowed if you have some sort of private prior relationship. As it was explained to me, prior relationship can be very, very, very broad. In this case, I know that one of the things that was brought up is that the two men attended the same megachurch. So, essentially in Texas, anybody can give anybody else a gift. It is hard to prove quid pro quo that you got a favor directly for a gift. What I think they were looking at was whether that gift was properly reported. Even those rules are pretty loose, and our legislators appear to be able to do almost whatever they want in terms of the payment they get, the reimbursements they get. I do know that there have been some legislators who've been fined by the Texas Ethics Commission for misusing, for example, campaign funds and things like that, but our rules are pretty loose. That's, I guess, why the feds get involved. We see the feds getting involved in Texas corruption cases.
Lisa, while you're talking about all these cases, I just want to help people understand, kind of the difficulty in putting this together, because it's not like you just ask for a list and this list is available and it's in the perfect format. You kind of had to piece things together over several weeks and months to make sure that you were getting everything as uniform as possible, and you were able to make that comparison in the way that would be understandable to people, correct?
Yes. I mean, I knew the Rangers were investigating, and I knew that a lot of local people are concerned about corruption. They want something to happen. And I was hearing from people who were frustrated because they'd filed a complaint and they hadn't heard back, or they'd heard, no, the Rangers aren't going to be investigating. So I asked the Rangers, the DPS, for a list of all the cases that they actually had investigated, that they closed. And at the time, I didn't realize there were also hundreds of cases that they hadn't been able to investigate because those investigations weren't approved. So found that out. But then I asked them for every single case that they could release that either already had been released for some public reason other than a prosecution, and then for all the cases involving any prosecution of any kind. And so then I had to do the math of how many involved prosecutions to determine how often they got a prosecution. I thought it was really interesting. Of course, normally in normal criminal cases, only a small percentage result in some sort of prosecution. But these cases, remember, a lot of these are vetted in advance, and DAs review them in advance. And for them to only 10% or so to result in any kind of public action or prosecution is kind of surprising. And I think it leaves a lot of citizens with the concern that I have corruption in my town, in my county, or in my legislature, and nobody's doing anything about it. And I think, you know, in my story, you'll also see somebody who's talked to some rangers, and I talked to a ranger or two, who said, you know, this is a frustrating process where sometimes we get the goods on somebody and then the DA doesn't do anything. So I think this is a system, and I know that the KXAN report looks at that there could be a reconstitution of a kind of a better central prosecution unit, because that's the other thing, is a lot of the local DAs don't have much experience prosecuting these kinds of crimes that are maybe sort of a little bit specialty crimes, civil rights crimes or official oppression crimes. A lot of DAs, they prosecute crimes, not white collar crimes. And so it's hard. It can be hard for DAs to handle this kind of thing, not putting aside any kind of political relationship or personal relationship they might have with the person who's been accused.
Or just the perception of that relationship too. Sometimes that can be just as bad. Yeah, you're right. The Watchdog and KXAN story talks about the possible office that's independent of any kind of politics or partisanship. So maybe that's something lawmakers will talk about in the next session, or maybe one of these like 50 special sessions we're having right now or something. I don't know.
Nice. It'd be nice if they make room for public integrity on their agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see if that gets put on the call for the next special session. Lisa, I don't want to leave out our other partner, KTEP, the public radio station in El Paso. I know Angela Cocherga has been working on a report there. Could you briefly describe what she's been working on and what we're looking to see come out of her outlet this week?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things we thought, I think, when public integrity was given to the Rangers was that a lot of the investigations were going to be done from Austin still by Rangers who are trained in this. What's really happened is everybody all across the state does these investigations. And one of the things I found out was that there were some of the fewest investigations were conducted out in West Texas, but they had a really interesting case involving a justice of the peace who literally didn't do her job for years. She didn't even process tickets. And essentially, the Rangers learned after investigating her that she was pocketing some of that money. And she was also apparently on the side running a pyramid scheme all the time she served as, quote unquote, a judge. She eventually was forced to resign from office. But in her case, a lot of people locally, because she was never prosecuted, really, I mean, she didn't really have to do anything except repay some of the money and resign. A lot of people don't know what to make of her quote unquote crime. They're not sure what she did. And there again, I think that's a damaging part of the lack of openness in the system, that people, you know, end up wondering, will this crime pay? Or maybe she really wasn't guilty, because we don't really, all we know is she left office. And she got away with what she was doing for so long too, that's a damaging thing. When corruption is there for so long, and I can't believe the troopers and the state employees who took their fines and cases to her never noticed that she wasn't doing anything. It just sort of it seems to be a case of public corruption right under your nose that nobody took care of for a very long time.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my final question that I want to pose to each of you individually. You know, we talk about these crimes that often go unnoticed, things white collar crimes, corruption, bribery, but they do have the potential to affect Texans everywhere across the state, no matter what capacity you're in. David, I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on that? Why should people, the everyday Texan, why should they care about these hidden crimes like this?
Yeah, I mean, these crimes can affect everyone. I mean, we all pay taxes, and our taxes pay for so many things around us, and we need to have a good, strong investigative system to find out if our tax dollars are being, misused. And we all wait in different types of lines for government services. If you own a business, maybe you need a permit, or you have to get an inspection, or you need electrical work done on your house. I mean, there's so many different things where the government has to be involved. So we need to have a strong, good investigative system to find out if people are skipping the lines or gaming the system to take advantage of, the services and things that everyone needs from the government, and that we have to, wait for to get from the government in some cases. So, corruption can affect any of those things, and if it's not being investigated, then you get more and more people that are discontent with how their tax dollars are being used, or how they're having to get their government services, or not getting their government services, and it just goes downhill.
Jessica, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so I got to interview the Tarrant County District Attorney, Sharon Wilson. She took office after this change was made where they decentralized these public integrity investigations. And the DA's office there, unlike some of the smaller counties, has a lot more resources, and they had like a white collar public integrity unit. Since the 80s. One of the crimes she said that they investigated, or I asked her to give me an example of a case that she thinks was handled well. And she mentioned a case in which about 5 or 6 Arlington police officers were indicted for tampering with a government record. And basically what they did was they entered into their in-car computer system that they had made traffic stops when they hadn't. So it wasn't that they were, illegally stopping someone. It was made up people, or people that didn't exist. But, it wasn't an elected official. But the reason that matters, I think, is because, this police officers are in a position of public trust. We have to rely on what they're saying. And even though somebody wasn't, harmed in that instance, it's important that we go after those type of cases, because we don't want somebody serving in a role with so much power who lies.
Lies are bad.
Lies are bad.
Lisa, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I would just say that, when corruption begins, it often starts with something small. But take the example of the former Freeport city manager. He started stealing the proceeds, $100,000 or more, from concerts that were held by the city to benefit the museum, Cheech and Chong event. He just went bigger and bigger. And so corruption, if it doesn't get stopped, if it doesn't get reported, it tends to grow. And the worst case scenario is somebody who's corrupt goes from one lower office and keeps going up until they're, in a very important position. So you don't want it to grow. You don't want a person who's corrupt to be able to steal more and to go for a more important office. You want it to be stopped. You want your tax dollars to go for what you really want them to go for. So everybody has a stake in this.
All right, that's well said. Lisa, Jessica, David, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, you can go to the Texas Observer's homepage and click on the Justice for Some link, where all stories will roll out during the week. And we have a lot more for viewers on KXAN.com. Watch. Online now, Justice for Some, the digital investigation. Watch the video feature, explore interactive map and data interactives detailing the Texas Rangers public integrity cases and their outcomes, plus links to reporting from our partners on this project, including the Texas Observer. Find it all in the investigative section of KXAN.com right now.